Okay. Hello and welcome to episode 79 of Bits and Pieces, the friendliest cricket podcast. I'm your host, Prashant TP, and we've had a very busy 7 days with lots to catch up on. The Prime Minister of Bangladesh has had to weigh in on the issue of a cricketer's retirement. An Australian Test cricketer was accused of not paying for a haircut, an accusation that has since been withdrawn, it must be said, with an apology. Ian Botham and Ian Chappell are still going at it like it's 1979. The BCCI is contemplating employment contracts as though it's $12.99, and Team India jerseys are available for $10.99. And all of this is before we've even spoken a word about the actual cricket. And there's plenty happening on the field as well. The juggernaut, that is the Australian women's team, has finally been halted by England. This is their first series defeat in 6 years of total dominance, both home and away. And in the men's Ashes, I'm happy to report that after a resounding psychological victory, followed by a thumping moral victory, Ben Stokes' team has finally managed to win a game of cricket, as crazy as that might seem. All of England is rejoicing the fact that after 3 thrilling encounters, the Ashes are alive, a phrase that also sounds like a one-line plot summary of the best sci-fi horror movie of all time. In other cricketing news, India beat Bangladesh, Afghanistan beat Bangladesh, and if it were possible, Bangladesh should have also beaten Bangladesh. Disgusted by it all, Tamim Iqbal retired and then unretired and then decided to take a break because he was so tired. Sure, to make sense of everything that's happened, we have a lively panel raring to go, like Johnny Bairstow before the umpire calls over. Our first panelist is an impact investor by day, keyboard artist by night, and a cricket fan at all times. She claims that she doesn't have a favorite cricketer, but when pressed for an answer says that Jhulan Goswami holds a special place in her heart. I think she's lying though. I think her favorite cricketer is an aging Murli Vijay, because as she's admitted before on this podcast, there is nothing she enjoys more than an old monk. Say hello, Rachana Ramchan.
Hi everyone. I'm still recovering from my new favorite cricketer who I'm fangirling at the moment, Jeff Johnson. I met her at the match and I told her some things and she responded to me on Twitter saying she really liked meeting me. So yeah, I have a new friend and a new favorite cricketer.
Wow.
Amazing. Yeah.
She stands you back. Awesome. Our next panelist also lives in London. The chances are, if you were lucky enough to be at the Oval for the WTC final, you heard two men yelling their support for Mohammad Shami between deliveries, no matter how hopeless the situation. You probably had no trouble in identifying one of them as Virat Kohli. The other voice, in all probability, belonged to Nishant Biswal, the most vocal Mohammad Shami supporter I know. His favorite commentators are David Gower and David Lloyd, epitomizing style, humor, and painful Thomo-induced damage to the breadbasket. Say hello, Nishant Biswal, aka Bisi.
Hey guys, nice to be back.
Panelist number 3 is a man of many talents. Cricket journalist, video blogger, podcaster, writer, brand manager, frisbee champ. I could go on and on, but also, and rather more importantly, he is one of the bravest men I know for daring to suggest that all this baseball business might actually make Test cricket more interesting.
Harsha Bhogle is on the pod.
He has, with Baz-like nerve and Ben-like temerity, dared to suggest that perhaps baseball isn't the worst idea ever conceptualized by mankind since the calamitous pineapple on pizza experiment all those years ago. Say hello, Nitin Sundar.
Hey, thanks, PDP. In my defense, does anybody remember the last 10 Ashes that happened? I don't, but these Ashes have been pretty watchable, must be said. So yeah, all thanks to baseball. There is a lot of interest. There is also a lot of noise around the Ashes, and it's all good. Yeah.
Awesome. And last but not the least, our final panelist is a man who has read about every cricket match that he hasn't watched and ends arguments with whataboutery from the 19th century. When he slams his fist down and goes, yeah, but what about W.G. Grace? You have very little choice but to quietly acknowledge defeat to a superior intellect. The quintessential nice guy, so nice, in fact, that New Zealand have offered him honorary citizenship, and a man who looks more like Fahad Fasil than Fahad Fasil himself. Say hello, Abhishek Chopra, aka Chops.
I reject everything. The only thing that I accept from that intro is the Fahad Fasil similarity.
Yeah.
What a fantastic actor.
Yeah. Once you
Just
get your
like-
New Zealand citizenship, Tony will kick you out of the WhatsApp group anyway. So.
I was going to
If
say, go on,
you-
Bisi.
Sorry, if you merge mine and Chop's face currently, you will get Fahad Fasil from that movie. Which movie is that? That Srivalli movie. That I forgot. Pushpa.
Yeah.
Nice.
Okay, so awesome, guys. It's great to be here and great to be. Lots happened in the last 7 days. So I thought would be a good place to start off with the women's Ashes. And Rachana has actually been to, I think, the third T20. So yeah, tell us what that was like.
What an experience. Now, the thing is, until the last minute, I was in two minds. Should I go for the match or not? Why? Because one, I want to see, I don't obviously like Australia winning, given their history over the many, many years and all the defeats India has faced. And at the same time, I just don't like the England women's team after what happened last year at Lord's with Deepti Sharma's Mankat. I still haven't been able to get over that. So I do not have. So throughout this time, I was like, if I were to go, who do I support? And then at the end of the day, let me just support cricket, or then let me just support the underdog and hope for a good match.
I'm glad you clarified why you were wondering why you were in a dilemma whether to go or not, because this is not a BCCI game. It's not like the venue is going to be switched at the last minute.
Yeah, all of these moral dilemmas. But yeah, so what was interesting is for the first 20 minutes of the match, they kept talking about if you feel any discrimination, if people, you feel
Nice.
if you feel that you've not been spoken to in a good way, then please call this number. Please write this
Wow.
email. Write to this email. And this was definitely not the case last year. The day of the legendary last ODI against between India and England. But I also guess it's partly due to what happened last week with Bairstow, Harry Cummins, etc. So that was the first thing that was different. And yeah, match was a good match. I still feel that if it were not a reduced game, then the game may have been in Australia's hands. And I was mentally making some predictions about the match that England will lose a wicket pretty early on. They will be stable for the next 20, 30, 40 runs. Then they will tumble and crumble. And this is the case pretty much almost every single England game I have watched in recent past. And by the end, they'll somehow make it and somehow manage to reach a decent total. And this is essentially what happened. The last few runs in this 14 over second innings ended up being a little bit of a drag, and they lost a couple of wickets very quickly. And but yeah, finally ended up being England's game, a good game, and it was good to see. It was actually good to see Australia lose. Whatever said and done, and I threw away all of my all my anger towards the England team. I put it all aside. But yeah. Yeah, that was the experience.
Excellent. I like how you said, England would lose an early wicket, then they would score a few runs, then they would collapse. It's like you're describing the men's team as well at one go. Right? This is basically mass ball. But yeah, perfect encapsulation, right? Yeah. And I agree with you. I feel Australia might have won this if it had gone to the 20 overs, right? I think the reduced chase helped England, but they also played really well in the second game to win that, right? And win the series 2-1.
Yeah, fantastic second game. Yeah.
Yep.
Um,
Yep. I
How
just
many
wanted
points
to
is
add
it for the T20? Sorry.
2 points, I guess.
2.
Oh, we should explain this
Yeah,
point format. Unless we did that last week, I don't know. But we should still explain. Why don't somebody explain it to me, because I don't understand the format. Thank you.
So I think the women's Ashes is a cross format series thing. So it's like 1 test, 3 T20s, and how many ODIs are there?
3 ODIs.
3
3
ODIs.
ODIs. So it's 2 points for every white ball game and 4 for the test match.
Yep.
So
16
I think
points.
they are 16 points overall to play for, and they are at 6-4 current.
So Australia is still
Australia.
ahead, basically. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. And I just wanted to say I put it on the group too last week. Vaishnavi had come on the pod and she had said that it's going to be 16-0 to Australia. after what had happened in the test match, which we had discussed last time. And
Yeah.
man, the curse of BNP is like well and truly upon us. Men's cricket, women's cricket, men's ashes, women's ashes, it just never fails to have the opponent under its disguise. And
this is where I insert Tony's famous BNP jinx into the podcast.
Yeah.
yeah.
But that said, oh, sorry. Yeah, I was just going to say, but that said, I still think the ODI series is going to be Australia 6-0.
Yeah.
I think in the past 42 games or something since 2018, Australia have lost one game against India. I think that was back in 2021.
Yeah, and zero in regular time, right? Even wasn't that also?
Yeah.
That was in the super over. Yeah.
No. That wasn't the.
That was the T20 game.
Oh, that was T20.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah. In ODIs, their record is even more crazy. Yeah, you're right.
Yeah.
Wow.
This is that was Julian Goswami, I think, making the last few runs in that game against Australia. Only loss that Australia have had, but it's also going to be interesting because it's a different captain as well. Alisa Healy's record statistically has not been great, but I also would not. I think it's very subjective, and we need to look at each game, each match.
Each match is an independent event.
Exactly. Each match is an independent event. Yeah, I'm an Alisa Healy fan.
Amazing.
I just want to say this. For the follower, for any follower of the men's game, the idea of this kind of excellence with this little hype is unheard of.
Yeah.
Okay, we've encountered a lot of hype with very little excellence. Hello, baseball. But 6 years of not having lost a series and so little Vettasine to go with it is unheard of in the men's game. Seriously.
Yeah. That's true.
In fact, on that note, I wanted to ask Rachana, has there been any sort of cross team trash talk or any sort of Glenn McGrath type predictions around the women's ashes, or has it largely been a very like pleasant affair, as all women's cricket tends to be? And unless there is a monketing event, then it ceases to be pleasant. But yeah.
I actually think this has been a more pleasant affair. And I think it's because of a 5-day test. I think there was so much of hype around it. I don't remember, maybe it's been 25, 30 years since there's been a 5-day test in the women's game. And and it's been, I think, 7 or 8 years since there was a result in a women's game as well.
Yeah.
So I think that itself was, a big step in the women's game. So not that much trash talk I've seen on the internet, or generally.
No, I think the only player in the women's game who I believe is really capable of stepping it up as far as trash talk is concerned is now retired, which is Catherine Siver-Brandt. She used to dish it out on the field as well as off the field, and since then it's been pretty straightforward, I guess. And I guess both teams were just very pleasantly surprised that the opportunity to play a 5-day test and a real actual test presented itself. And it's been fascinating to watch.
Yeah.
I nominate Jaysha to start engineering Kolpak style deals for the Australian women's team. It's high time. break that system of superstars aside, please. This is not good for it.
Wait, up chronology, Sanjay. First, BCCI has to start taking women's cricket seriously. Then we will get to breaking it Australian hegemony. We'll get there in like 5 years' time. Right, please. Yeah, slowly, step by step.
Chronology, Sanjay. Nice.
But
I'm just thinking that the only way Bradman could have been stopped is if he would have praised him no end on 3 or 4 episodes. I mean, that would have been the end of his. Maybe he would have averaged 40. 50.
I know. He would have averaged a 0.06, man, out of that 99.4.
Very close. I mean,
nothing on us.
I told Tony back in 1940 only we'll start bits and pieces. That fellow was busy at that time doing some newsletter. Otherwise, we could have ruined Bradman's career. Yeah. No, but I'm glad that every time we talk about women's cricket, we also observe the fact that it is a very collective sort of effort, where women are actually looking out for each other. It's a much more pleasant affair than when men play cricket. I tend to play a little bit of ultimate frisbee, as PDP mentioned at the start of this podcast, right? It is one of the few sports which is a mixed gender sport. I think along with tennis mixed doubles, probably is the only other game, and that too is, a small subsection of tennis, which is a mixed gender sport. This is actually a mixed gender sport that we play, right? And it tends to be one of the most pleasant sports. There is a spirit. There is actually a spirit of ultimate frisbee where it's a sport. It's a sport without referees. It's a sport without referees. So if
Abu Dhabi MCC is here.
If
Abu
Chris
Dhabi
Broad is
MCC has
the
come.
if Chris Broad is the referee, might as well not have a referee.
What you actually have to actually, there are no umpires either. But then you could say Kumar Dharmasena is your umpire. You might as well not have umpires. So, fair enough. Yeah, but hence it tends to be a fairly pleasant sport. I don't know if it is cause and effect or correlation or whatever, but I think it is great to see that the Ashes are happening in good spirits. At least one Ashes is happening in fairly good spirit, and like we mentioned, there is a lot of substance despite the fact that there isn't so much of sound. So yeah, all hail the women's Ashes. And so Rachana, you're backing. I mean, we are all expecting Australia to win the one days, but who are you supporting?
I am supporting cricket, and I'm supporting please don't rain. I really want the series to have rain should not be the winner for this ODI series. But really, honestly, just want good games at the end of the day. And I do think England have also, put in a lot of effort. I also really like England's team structure at the moment. And they've gotten a few new players as well. It is a young team compared to the Australia team, and I do think the England team have a lot of potential in the next few years. ODI has been a tricky format for them more generally, and losing, last year all 3 games against India was obviously not easy for them. But yeah, that's so not really supporting either team this time. Just one good.
Are you going for any more games?
Hoping to go for Sunday's game. I don't yet have tickets, but weather's not looking great. So yeah, I mean, I don't want it to be a severely reduced game. And I was looking at the New Zealand Sri Lanka women's series that's been going on, and Sri Lanka beating New Zealand and winning the ODI series. Chamri Attapattu's 2 centuries, but very reduced games. Again, it's not the same.
Yeah, but it gives England a chance, though, if it is a reduced affair. So there you go.
Yeah.
So, Rachana, I actually wanted to ask you if there was any cricketer that you saw live for the first time in the game that you saw.
Many of them, I think. I think this was my first time. Well, the entire Australia team. First time I was seeing Australia live. So that was an experience. And also I was talking about Jess Johnson at the beginning. It was really lovely. At the end, before the presentation ceremony, people were waiting. She just came to the stands and she met and spoke to every single person, took a photo with everyone. I ended up saying 3 independent sentences to her, like said, hey Jess, I really loved your wedding photos. And then I was like, I loved the suits that you and your partner wore. And then few minutes later, can I have a photo with you? Took a photo. You're an inspiration to all of us on the field and off. Please don't ask me how much old monk I consumed.
Awesome.
Well done.
Awesome.
Yeah. So it was a good overall experience, I would say. Yeah. I do want to call out one player though. In this series, for me, I'm curious to hear your thoughts as well. But I do think Elise Perry has really stood out in this series. Especially, she carried the team in the second match, even though they lost. She hit 30 plus runs in the third match as well. She's had a tough time in the past year. She was dropped last year as well, and I think she's really come back, particularly on the batting side. So it was good to see her in. It's been good to see her in form.
Yeah, she should have formed the strike though in the second game, right, in the last over.
Yeah,
I mean, it was bonkers. I thought when they had to get 20 of the last over from Sophie, I thought, there's no way. I mean, they're not even going to get close. And they came within 3 runs. And those sixes were just so beautiful. They were just so effortless. It's it's crazy that a talent like her was kept out of the side for as long as she was. But then you just take a look at Talia McGrath and you see what skills she brings to the table, and it's it's an embarrassment of riches, whichever way you look at it for Australia.
Yeah, I do think that Elise Perry was, at least in my memory, the first women's cricket superstar, so to speak. And after all these years, to see her doing so well, I think she did well in the test too.
She was amazing. Brilliant in the test. Yeah, 90 odd or something. Yeah,
90s he got out. So
yeah,
I mean, really good to see her back in action and doing so well. And I still think that she has one of the most beautiful bowling actions. The way she almost stops still at the crease for a moment. It's changed over the years, but yeah, I mean, Elise Perry is always going to be special in that sense. And yeah, great to see her. Great to see her doing so well. And I'm just sad for Alisa Healy. This was her first big chance for the captaincy, and I think she showed a great deal of courage in batting with multiple injuries in the hand in the test. But in the T20s, it hasn't gone so well for her as skipper, and I mean that's been the sad part. But yeah, I mean, as long as it's a close series, and as you said, rain doesn't come in the way, it's going to be great.
I also wanted to ask you guys about Issy Wong, who was someone who was really impressive the few games when I saw her, and for some reason she doesn't seem to be getting a game. So you think they'll give her a go in the ODIs, or
she did quite well in the WPL, no?
Exactly. I mean, she looked quite exciting. I was surprised that she was left out.
Yeah, I mean, she is definitely more of a T20 player, so it was surprising that she was left out this series, and because of which I wonder if they'll bring her back next one. But it's also their bowling strategy in general has been interesting because they have only one dedicated fast bowler, Lauren Bell, and then they have Nat Siva-Brunt, of course, who's all rounder. But they've been very strong on the spin game. Charlie Dean, Sophia Eccleston, Sarah Glenn. So I wonder if it's just they're like it's just one fast bowler that we'll be looking at having. Yeah.
Cool.
Nice.
So moving on to the men's Ashes, guys. Thoughts on the third test?
What I just want some soundtrack to come in here, which is the sound of being proven right, vindication, and all of that.
What did you predicted that England will win this test? Is it?
No, I have been on I think 3 episodes now.
No,
a couple of them on the other one.
Acha, there are fence-shaped marks on Choppy's bum. Okay, because he's been sitting. Yeah.
No. So there was a cage match, there was a ladder match, but PGK felt like we won, guys.
Yeah, no, I really enjoyed the England win only for the reason that I got proven right on multiple counts. But otherwise, yeah, it's always a sad occasion when England win at anything, women, men, whatever cricket they win at, it's bad.
Yeah.
But yeah, I mean, it's just good that the series is alive and kicking. And I think England are still going to lose it. They might lose it 4-1, 3-2, whatever it is. But it's such amazing cricket, and I really think, and I hope rather, that this test series, all 5 matches put together, go past 2005. It's been 2005 has been around as the best or greatest series for a long time. I really think this one has the potential to go beyond it, given everything that has happened on and off the field, and these 3 test matches have just been absolutely bonkers.
Yeah. In fact, on that note, right, in my living memory at least, 2005 is the only Ashes I remember. I mean, I remember the others, but not really fondly or anything, right? They've largely been very drab affairs, right? In Australia, they've been brutally one-sided, except for that one series in 2010 where, Cook and Peterson.
No, even that was one-sided, right?
Even that was
One
one-sided,
side.
you're right.
Yeah,
But at least
yeah.
even that was one-sided. I think Australia won in Perth, I think, but it was still a very one-sided series.
Yeah.
It was just so against the run of form. You didn't expect England to win. Even that great England team, you didn't expect them to win. And it's just been really drab. So, and yeah, I was telling Chop some time back as well, right? We can blast baseball all we want, but it has delivered a very interesting series where the action is sort of lived up to the hype as well. Usually there is just a lot of hype. There's a lot of Magra and Langer and all these people shooting their mouth off, and then the action doesn't live up to it. But this time it's been pretty good. And in the third test, Australia also seemed to be playing baseball, right? They went at 4.4 on the first day. Mitch Marsh's innings sort of, it's a baseball all-time great innings, I would say, right? You come in adversity and go after the bowling. And Travis Head in the second innings as well, right? They were losing wickets. It looked like they'll get bowled out cheaply. And there's just a counter-attack that comes out of nowhere. You're trying to skewer sixes through the leg side. Test cricket has never been this exciting to watch, right? I know people are going to come at me for saying this. I don't credit, by the way, I don't credit Baz for all of that. I don't credit Bazball for all of that. I think organically every test team has sort of reached this approach to test cricket now. I think they realize that in this day and age of T20, this is how test cricket is to be played, because your good old-fashioned Cheteshwar Pujara 0 or 50 ball seeing off the new ball is not going to work, because people get out before they play out so many balls. They might as well try and score as many as they can when they're out there. That's what every team seems to be doing, and it's making for fantastic viewing. So yeah, very glad that it's 2-1. And hope it ends 3-2. I don't care who wins, but I hope it ends 3-2. Yeah.
I think that Mark Wood spell in that first day was just there.
Yeah.
It was finally like you brought the game series alive, that there is some hope that these guys will not get, shuttered down by likes of Khwaja or an incisive spell from Cummins. They have something to counteract, and that it was amazing. And from there on, I think they sort of built, and I think this should give them some amount of confidence that you don't go with their grandfathers like Anderson and all and put them on pitches which don't help them at all, and just continue to hope against hope that something will happen. Yeah. So this is them taking that batting approach with their bowling lineup, and it worked. I just hope Wood stays fit, because that is the biggest worry that everyone surrounding him has currently. Otherwise, it'd be a very, one-dimensional sort of a fast bowling attack from England, which is not going to bother the likes of Khwaja. And I'm sure Smith has a double coming. I have no doubts in my mind. He should have been scoring on this pitch, because it would have been a lot more to his liking. It was a lot quicker onto the bat. And that outfield was non-existent. There was no grass on it. It was brown from day one. So you were getting runs off edges quite easily. So I think all said and done, England sneaked one past, but there is definitely. I hope they stick to this template rather than doing some random thing of calling somebody else out of retirement and asking him to turn up on the first day, which is very possible under baseball era. So, let's see.
I'm glad that barbers are not getting paid, which means hopefully the curators will continue to leave grass on the pitch, right? After two very strange pitches. Finally, but good point on the outfield. That outfield looked like proper Somasundaram cricket ground. I don't know what's happening with English.
That outfield looked like it was picked up from Dharamshala after you guys were not allowed to go there. That's exactly what it looked like.
Yeah, indeed.
But I mean, Bisi raises an interesting point, which is that I'm not sure how much of this resurgence in this test match is to do with baseball, or how much it is to do with the fact that they finally got their attack right. Their personnel was much better, and they had some fire, as he was describing, in their attack. And Anderson, he is a legend, and respect to him and all that, but he definitely looked like a pale shadow of his past self in those first two games.
For sure.
No, there was this video of Mark Wood's spell, right, which I'm sure all of us saw. I think Cricket for ICC put it out, probably. Every ball of his spell, where he runs and delivers. There is the sound as he runs through the crease, right? It sounds like the loading of a gun. It is. I know all bowlers make that noise when they go through, but there's something about Mark Wood's, delivery stride. It is oral. I don't know how to describe it. And what follows is also like a gunshot because he's bowling incredible pace. And it's interesting how England are managing Mark Wood, right? I think they realize that someone who's bowling at his pace does not have too many games left in him.
Yeah.
He barely plays any first-class cricket. I think he was pulled out of the IPL also midway or something.
Yeah, he was.
I'm sure it was, similar to Josh Hazelwood. It was they made up an injury or whatever, and they're managing his workload. They realize that every ball, he has X number of balls left in him, and they're making every ball count, right? So I expect him to play the next test, but I don't think he'll play the last test, regardless of how the series is set up. But boy, you can't not watch when Mark Wood is bowling and batting, for that matter. I think this innings in the first innings probably turned this game. Very good point to raise, PDP, about whether this turnaround was down to baseball. And you're right, it wasn't. It was because they got, two very good bowlers, especially for these conditions, into their attack, who they desperately lacked in the first two tests. If anything, England's batting harked back to a more traditional approach in this test.
Yeah.
It was only when it looked really desperate in the first innings when they started going for the bowling. And good on them, because otherwise they would have conceded a potentially match-losing lead to Australia. And in the second innings, again, they weren't going hammer and tongs, right? It wasn't a big chase. They kept losing wickets, but they counterattacked, but with a lot of restraint as well, I thought. So, yeah.
I think for Australia, the big missing link was Nathan Lyon. And in the final analysis, you had 50 odd overs that Australia bowled in the second innings. Only one of them was bowled by a spinner, and or probably two of them or something. And that was the sad part. I mean, if Nathan Lyon would have been around, I think he would have been bowling by, I guess, the 10th, 15th, max 20th over for sure. And it was just sad. I mean, I've been a big fan of how Cummins turned the situation around on the last day of the previous test. But to not have any faith in one of the bowlers you've selected, who's proved himself to be a pretty good find on the India tour just before this, not even trusting him for more than 2-3 overs was a very sad sight. Because by the end, I guess Scott Boland was really not measuring up to the task, and it was just down to Cummins and Stark. And whenever those two were around, you had any chance of Australia picking up wickets. So that was, for me, sort of a missing link. But I think Hazelwood is going to make his comeback in the next test, and Boland is going to go out. They also have Mitch Marsh, who bowled pretty well, got the old ball to move around somehow, which even the other bowlers were not able to that much. They have an interesting selection problem on their hand, with Green coming back and Marsh having set himself up in the team firmly well with his century, his bowling. So yeah, it'll be interesting to see what happens to Warner, and I guess Murphy's still going to play, but not sure how many overs he's going to get.
I don't even know why they picked Murphy. I remember saying this during our BGT.
They can just go with an all-seam attack and have Travis Head bowl a few overs.
If they need to,
yeah, exactly.
In fact, I remember saying this in the BGT episodes of Bits and Pieces. I personally don't rate Todd Murphy all that much. He might be the second best spinner or the third best spinner in Australia. That doesn't mean he really should be playing Test cricket in conditions such as these. And I think the only reason teams pick up spinners in these test matches is because they're worried about over rates.
Yeah,
and which has become a factor, and it's very irritating, right? That the ICC has thrown that random spanner into the works. Like, play 5 fast bowlers. What's stopping you, right? Play both Green
and picking spinners hasn't helped them meet over rates. Every day is like 7-8 overs short in any case across all games.
And he's not good enough to get a bowl on the last day. So anyway, he's just out there on the field, right? You might as well have backup as fast bowlers. But yeah,
I want to bring up a question on Cummins' captaincy itself, I think, or on the bowling captaincy specifically. I'm not saying as a captain he's because there was this extended duration of time where they kept bowling short to tail-enders, and I didn't understand that. I think they'll really let the game slip during that first innings. During the second innings of the game, where they kept bowling short and Wood just kept swinging for the fences.
In fact, even in the first innings, right?
And even Vokes for that matter was able to escape. I found it baffling, really baffling, that for the short ball, you will have men on the boundary and hoping for the big hit to go bad and, pick up a catch. But there were so many balls that, landed somewhere near the wicket keeper or in front of the wicket close by. You had no one there. Like, how is this making sense at all? I think Mark Taylor also mentioned it on commentary. But yeah, I mean, I do think for Cummins, if not in his bowling, perhaps in his tactics, the fatigue did come through, and hopefully the Navratri break is going to do them a lot of good.
No,
Go
I
play some
also
dandiya, something.
I also feel it is again a feature of what Test cricket is these days, right? Because this is exactly what Australia did when Stokes went after them in the previous Test match as well. There was this period where they were bowling short. We've seen England also do the same with their funky fields and everything, right? Partly the pitches, partly the fact that margins are so thin, and a Test match gets decided, with half an hour of Mad Max hitting, right? And we saw that happen with Mark Wood and and others in this Test match as well. With Ben Stokes as well in this Test match, right? And Head again in the second innings. I think captains are understandably a little cagey when batsmen start playing so aggressively. They believe the only way to get a wicket is to set the field back and set a trap. I think teams are evolving and adapting to these conditions. It's interesting to watch, I know. But it's also a little hard on them if former players who played when Test cricket was being played in a slightly different way to come and weigh that, this is not the right way to go about it. So these guys know what they're trying to do.
Yeah. And thoughts on Harry Brook, guys?
He was exceptional in the second innings. I thought he suddenly turned up, and after all his nonsense that he did at Lords, and he got caned rightly so for it, I thought he played a very nice quality innings in the second innings. I think he's up. That number 5 spot probably suits him a lot more than being promoted up the order and him continuing to do whatever he does. But it seemed like he was very much at home and at his home ground also. So good for him. I rate that innings a lot more highly than whatever else he does in terms of bashing the ball, because I think on that day 4, very few people were able to even time the ball. Even if you see the highlights, Crawley is like swinging as if he's going to send it into the sea, and it goes to mid-off and one single. And I think one of the few people who actually timed the ball for the first time on that day was Joe Root, who cover drove 1 for 4. And then it was Harry Brook. Nobody else really was timing the ball as such.
So I don't want to be a Kadus uncle about this, guys, but
But you will be. Go for it.
I will be, of course. So as well as Harry Brook played, and I think this is the best I've seen him bat. I mean, I know he got more runs in New Zealand and Pakistan and all that, but I think this is the best knock I've seen him play. I will say though that on that final day, that the 4th day, he was sort of cover driving on the rise. The ball was not doing anything. Like, the only bowler who was getting it to move at all was Mitchell Starc when he was bowling that full kind of
seam.
Yeah, exactly. Swinging it back in, but there was hardly any outswing. There was hardly any seam. It looked like it was gun barrel straight, and he was hitting it on the up. So I don't want to take away from a brilliant innings, but I still think there are some question marks about his defensive game.
I don't want to be an uncle and take away from his innings, but exactly. Like
he doesn't keep bat and bat close together.
Yeah,
सीधा ball.
Sunrisers में net में भी ऐसे ही खेल रहा था.
कुछ होता ही नहीं है ball. I want to mention Stuart Broad. I think he's been phenomenal. He's so much fun to watch right now, and him taking Warner's bunny every time is just warming my heart over and over again. And he has this amazing reaction. He's like, it's inevitable. It's like Thanos and his snap. I'm inevitable. So
and Warner's wife has posted a cryptic Instagram post today saying that
Sai Baba's watching.
It seems I'll pull up the exact post, but it seems to suggest that she says something to the effect of it has been great traveling with the Australian team all these years or something of that sort, seeming to suggest that this will be Warner's last tour. I don't know. Read whatever you want into
or the last time she tours with them.
She's had enough of watching him back like this.
Feel like I can't watch this Stuart Broad keep taking my husband's wicket every time.
Yeah.
I'm not coming. All the way from Australia, I'll have to travel and then watch this nonsense.
घर आजा reel बनाएंगे.
Better. घर पे reel बनाते हैं.
But Rachana, have you been following much of the men's Ashes so far? And what's your take on baseball? And do you hate it as much as the rest of us do?
Yeah, so this is something I remember saying in the first few episodes, but I'll repeat it again. So, as a principle, I've tried to cut down watching men's cricket.
Okay.
And that's largely because I spent, my first many years watching only men's cricket and not realizing that women's cricket existed as a sport. And the moment that realization happened in 2018-19, there was a complete switch for me. So the only thing that I have been following and watching different videos of is of the stumping and yeah, this pointless spirit of the game, because I live in London and I have to deal with people talking to me about spirit of the game. I know, Nitin, you spoke about spirit of the game in Ultimate and spirit of the game in the women's game, and I'm like, I am sick and tired of hearing those words, because I actually do believe in a sport I'm maybe it's my frustration with England, but I at this point I believe that spirit of the game has no place in sport where there are clear rules, because what is spirit in one culture is different in another culture, and then you go into a very different territory. So yeah, that is my the only thing I might add on. Yeah,
well said.
And on that note, also the upholders of the spirit of the game were the ones abusing Khwaja in the long run. So much for knowing about the spirit of the game.
Yeah,
guys. Steve Smith played his 100th test. Guys, thoughts?
Oh wow!
Excellent.
Yeah,
the third one is the 100th.
Yeah,
he thought he'll win.
I know I wasn't on the pod last week, and but I also want to, acknowledge Nathan Lyon's insane feat of 100 consecutive test matches. Apparently, the first bowler to accomplish that anywhere, to play 100 consecutive tests, right? That's quite something. But enough about Nathan.
Yeah. No, and you put that into context because of recency bias. You might think Moeen Ali blistered his finger bowling all those overs.
Yeah.
And Lyon's been doing that for 100 tests at a stretch. And just you bring one guy out of retirement and this is what happens to his fingers. It's an incredible feat. Guy is crazy. And he hobbled onto the pitch also to, whatever, lend support or whatever with that strained calf. It was quite crazy.
It properly jinxed himself, right? 100 tests and 101st season.
Yeah.
At least you can't blame BNP for that. Yeah.
A goat with a strained calf. I know.
Well played, Raf.
Oh my God. Okay.
No, I just wanted to call out Steve Smith. Steve Smith's catching in the slips. I know it's perhaps part of his cricket that's not spoken about a lot, but but I think over the years he's been one of my favorite slip catchers. It's like there are all of those catches, which he takes very acrobatically. There was one in the WTC final as well. There were a couple when he was playing for Sussex under Pujara. But I really think that the regulation chances he takes, right, which are made to look like regulation chances. I mean, there was one in this test which was like high above his right side. He just never misses. I mean, I can't think of a single slip catch that he has absolutely fluffed. There's one catch in the outfield in the previous test, I think, of Ben Stokes, which he fluffed. But it was so nice to see that even though he's one of the senior members of the team and he has spoken a couple of times about retirement in presentations and interviews, etc. When it was when the tactic was being applied by Cummins to Stokes before they changed it up a little bit, the fielder in the most important position was Steve Smith. And I mean, I feel the same way about Sachin Tendulkar.
Exactly.
Nitin and I have spoken a lot about it. But to my mind, the ball sense of this guy is incredible. I don't know how he's not become a better bowler. He obviously showed a lot of promise back in the day. I do hope he has a short but a nice second coming with the ball. But I love to watch him field. I love to see his reaction after he's caught the ball, because he's always, like his batting, he's going to tell you, what happened with the ball, how it moved
Yes.
around, etc. I love his catching. And I mean, one of the things about people who, as they say, they age and their hand-eye coordination also fails them. I know that happened with Sehwag, for example, whose game was built on that. With Smith, I think the clue to how well he's going to go with the bat is going to be in his catching. If he starts dropping them in the slips, it's close to the end. And that's the one thing that's been a big factor in Australian pace bowling riches.
Now I'm looking at Virat Kohli's dropped catches in new light, by the way.
Yeah.
But Chops, it is amazing that you're now completing my sentences, because when you started the Smith thing, I wanted to say the player he reminds me the most of is Tendulkar, right?
Yeah.
He's a player who is sort of built for cricket, right? He can bowl and bowl really well. He was the highest wicket taker in that 2010 T20 World Cup.
Yes.
If you guys remember.
Yes.
And he's a great catcher. All round, he's a very good all round fielder, right? Not just a great catcher, very athletic. And of course, we don't have to talk about Smith's batting. Yeah, he's really that Tendulkar type of player, right? And you're right, just like Tendulkar kept playing very well late into his career, he kept changing his technique as well. He kept adapting to different types of bowling challenges and all of that. Changed the way he holds his bat, changed the weight of his bat and all of that. But the runs never dried up. I think that's going to happen with Smith as well. I don't think hand-eye coordination is going to slow him down. But yeah, hopefully this is not a BNP jinx. But yeah, expecting a lot out of Smith.
He's also the tactical nerve center of the Australian team on the field right now. It's because Cummins is away in his own little world. He's gotten a printed sheet like Ashish Nehra gives to Hardik Pandya, and he goes for it. But these are the subtle things in terms of who the batter is and what you want to do specifically for him is what Smith brings down to the game, and he's always the one initiating those changes from slips. So I think he's incredible. Obviously, whether he gets a second go as a captain is something I'm sure all of us would really like to see, but very unlikely to happen as long as this team succeeds. I mean, unless there is some Indian sort of dramatic fall off the cliff, that won't change. So, but he'll continue to play as a team player, and he does a great job of managing the field from the slips as
well. A word about baseball, guys, since we have not spoken enough about it. What I wanted to say was this entire England team, right? Like, it is not really orchestrated or designed, but they have sort of pushed themselves into a corner now, where they sort of they have adopted this cult, right? This cult of baseball, which again, the name itself wasn't something they came up with. It was Andrew Miller who coined that term, right? And sort of gave it a life of its own. But now with what Robinson writes and what Anderson is writing and what, Baz is saying out there and all of that, it's like the team is trying very, very hard to live up to that image of playing a certain way. And they've just continued to push themselves into that corner now, right? I'm glad that they won a test here, which probably gives them some breathing space. But if they lose the series, they've given so much ammunition to their detractors to go after them, right? And you've seen this happen again and again in English cricket, where when the team is winning, nothing gets said, right? Everyone's happy. But the moment they start losing, and I think this happened in one of those Ashes where they got hammered when they went to Australia, right? This was in the Andy Flower regime, where you had a huge backroom staff that would travel with the England team. They kept winning with that backroom staff. The moment they lost the series, everyone pounced on that particular aspect. I think something like that could happen here as well if they end up losing the series. I hope they don't. It's also strange because it's not like, while Brendan McCullum obviously led the New Zealand team in an interesting way for a short period of time, it's not like he was like a visionary legend or anything. He was someone who used to keep, going out there and throwing his wicket away, like playing some crazy shots very often, more often than not. And was also a product of the team that he was a part of. It was a limited team that was trying to punch above its weight and so on and so forth. This whole messiah complex that they've given Brendan McCullum, it just doesn't sit right for me. And I think that unfortunately might end up becoming the undoing of baseball. That's my concern. And I hope that doesn't happen because it's overall, like I said before, a nice approach.
And I honestly think that this is actually peak Kiwi tactics, where you are very clear about what your team can do and what your team cannot do. And you know that if they tried to play conventional cricket, they would get blown off the park by Australia. And therefore, your best chance of winning is to do whatever it is that they're doing. So that is actually what it is. It is actually a pragmatic assessment of your own strengths and weaknesses. That's all it is. This whole thing of, we are here to make memories and we are honeymoon tour operators. That's all BS. Okay. Yeah. I mean,
no, which is all fine, but you keep it to yourself. You don't have to go around thumping your chest about it, right? And I'm glad that it's Ben Stokes has spoken about mental issues that he has faced and how this new approach probably is unshackling him. I'm sure lots of people in the England team probably identify with that. And English cricket has been beset with those problems for years, right? They play in that shit dreary weather with the stupid media that's behind them all the time. And cricket is a very lonely sport. And Marcus Trescothick is part of the coaching panel now, and he's gone through his own struggles as well. I'm sure the team is going through a very transformative and positive experience with this approach. You don't need to keep talking about it. Just enjoy it, and it's already selling itself.
No. So Nitin, I have no problem with them saying all of this that they're doing behind the scenes to create a healthy team atmosphere. That's very, very necessary. It's very important. Where I have a problem is where it's almost like this multi-headed monster. Like baseball is like this multi-headed monster, which involves 5+ run rate batting. It involves these kind of psychological counseling. I mean, everything comes under a broad umbrella of baseball. So when you lose, which of that do you change? What of that do you change? What of that is not working? I mean, those are all
it's
things
a church. It's a cult. I don't think you can put it any other way given how they're going about it. But I mean, there are nice elements to it. It makes for interesting watching.
For sure.
I think it was very sad ultimately in the presentation ceremony that the cult of baseball had to be sort of hoisted upon the batting of Mark Wood of all people, and Ben Stokes kept mentioning that clarity of thought. Are matlab, how are you talking about baseball with the lens of Mark Wood's batting? So I think this test is where they figured out perhaps in the back room that it's going to be okay if we don't go about it hammer and tongs. I think a lot of them played pretty okay conventional innings. None of them went completely mindless about it, and perhaps that's going to be the second coming of baseball. And I'm glad that at this stage of the journey of whatever this is, they have come across a really strong bowling attack which has tested the best of them. I mean, you look at Joe Root, all of us talk about how well he's going about it, and as soon as he comes, he's getting those singles away and really rotating the strike. But I mean, it's not been very, very easy for him to be able to do what he does. Cummins has had his number. So if the likes of Joe Root are facing those issues, the others are going to fall by the wayside. So maybe their batting approach will refine itself, and they will figure out how to execute better. But yeah, I mean, they can perhaps start off by talking a little less about it.
What is the cheapest haircut any of you have had, Jess? Bisi, you go first.
At home. With my own hands during COVID.
Yeah. This whole haircut controversy is just that sort of thing, right? It happens only during the Ashes. Who would have expected Alistair Cook of all people to come out and talk about it, right? He's the one who said the whole thing out.
The clue is in his name. Like any cheap detective story. Yeah, he's cooking it up. Yeah.
Chef's kiss.
Chef's kiss.
No, there is more to it also. No, then Travis Head turns up for a press conference. They're like, "What happened to your mustache?" He's like, "Oh no, I pay my barber." First, let me clarify. I pay my barber. What did happen because
was it this test where I think on the first day when Mark Wood delivered that amazing spell, he went to the presser on that day, and someone posed a very long question to him that England has been bowling whatever 70-80 miles per hour for so long with all the other bowlers, and suddenly you come along and you're cranking it up to 95, 96, 97, and how does it feel? And his answer is woohoo.
yeah, just that.
I mean, It's a team of fairly unlikable folks. I don't know why Bisi has found a new love for Stuart Broad. That man.
I love that guy.
I mean, if
He is so much
can't
fun.
you can't be my friend and Stuart Broad fan at the same time. But you look at Anderson, always grumpy. Ben Stokes is, always trying to talk up something or the other.
Dude, Anderson is all of us in a few years' time. I'm telling you. We'll
I
all
know,
be
I know,
grumpy
and
I'm
who
already
loves
there.
who loves our older versions, man? Like I certainly do. So the point I'm making is Mark Wood and Stuart, Vokes. It couldn't have come off with two better men at the crease for England. Both immensely likable, perhaps the two most likable guys in that England lineup. And yeah, I mean that should be baseball rather than all the other stuff they
Oh,
keep talking about.
so Chops, you're talking about karma and stuff, right? So next you will say, like some learned people on Twitter have been saying, Pat Cummins has got his just desserts for running out, stumping out
That
Johnny
we
Bairstow
have
against
to
this
we have
script.
to leave something for the Australian time zone, and Hank Sir on Smule sing something about it.
No, I like that whole thing where Chopsy is like, you cannot be my friend and a fan of Stuart Broad at the same time. And Bisi is like, say hello to my new little friend. And Stuart Broad is standing.
I will post from his account now. Wait, let me track him down. Where is he?
Guys, so moving on, guys. We had
We should let's talk about Sheikh Hasina, man.
yeah, no. So before Sheikh Hasina, we had a women's T20 international between India and Bangladesh, which India proceeded to win fairly comprehensively. But I would love to get Rachana's views on the composition of the side as well as the new Indian coach.
ये बन गया finally. कौन है?
It's Amol Mazumdar, no?
Mazumdar.
Yes.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, former Ranji player. Apparently, was in the same team as Sachin and Kambli.
Yeah.
When they played their legendary innings at the age of 12, 13 years old. Yeah, it's been an interesting few weeks, I would say. First of all, pin drop silence in Indian women's cricket. No clarity on when this match or if the series is even happening. Only a couple of weeks ago, it got finalized. Nushin Al Qadir, became the interim coach, or is the interim coach at this point. And a team that was announced that people have been very surprised by. And few names that so Renuka is not there. Apparently, it's because of an injury. If it is because of any other reason, then I think I'm giving up on BCCI. But then Richa Ghosh being dropped, that I think was just I actually don't get it, because I was just thinking back at India's games against South Africa earlier this year, and then the World Cup, and how Harmanpreet Kaur was talking about backing Richa Ghosh when she was dropped from the Commonwealth, and then she came back, and how she's finally made a positive dent. And of course the under 19 World Cup as well, where she was a part of. So that was quite surprising. And then of course during the WPL there were some very good players, Saika Ishaq, Shriyanka Patil, Manat Kashyap, who also Shriyanka and Manat I think did quite well in the Emerging Asia series as well. So there's been a lot of talk on the internet, on Twitter, like about about the team's composition, and nobody has a real answer. And all credit to Minumani. Three wickets on her debut match, and her journey is also very, very it is quite touching what she's gone through, and also the efforts that Kerala has invested in developing their cricket team. So definitely interesting pick, but overall there isn't much clarity on some of these decisions. And even on the Bangladesh side, the two of their most senior players, former captain Janara Alam, drop. They're trying to put together a younger team, and then the entire scramble on Twitter. Where is this being showcased? How can we watch the match? And the match is not televised anywhere. There is a YouTube link on the Bangladesh Cricket Board's page. and no on-field mics.
It is the shittiest stream I have ever seen of an international match.
I've been saying the same thing. And I have, even in the 90s, going back to the 90s, looking at old clips of the men's game, I have not seen something so atrocious. And the commentary, yes, okay, it's in Bangla, 70-80% Bangla, some English, in the middle, fine. I accepted all of that, but what I just couldn't accept from the commentators is batsman throughout. That's what I kept hearing. And then when the player of the match had to be announced, and now we'll call on stage, now we'll call to the podium, the man of the match and captain, Harmanpreet Kaur. And I'm like, why? I mean, we made so much progress in women's cricket. And why did we have to go back 50 odd years? So, yeah.
Please don't tell me they gave a Mixie as the man of the match prize.
I switched off at that point. I don't know what they gave. I mean, Sri Lanka, they gave a bouquet of flowers. This time but man of the yeah. So that's my rant.
So there's this idea that a few people have spoken about, that there aren't any answers, and there isn't enough discussion because there isn't enough outrage. That if selection calls were made similarly with the men's side, there would be a lot more yelling, a lot more shouting, a lot the pitch of the discussion would be a lot more shrill, and whether they liked it or not, beyond a point they would not be able to ignore the noise, the selectors. Yeah. Whereas that level of outrage, that level of toxicity in response from the fans is not there in women's cricket. Do you think there's any validity to that point of view? Which is why someone like Shikha Pandey gets left out. And okay, I mean, a few knowledgeable fans talk about it, but there isn't rage. There isn't Twitter's not going crazy.
Yeah, you're right. The community that supports women's cricket or Indian women's cricket, it is a tight-knit one, but it's a very small community still. And WPL has managed to get many more fans into the mix, but it's still nowhere close to the scale of the men's side. And we're also talking about India. It's far less equitable. Cricket is far less equitable in here versus, let's say, Australia or England. So yeah, I agree with that. I don't know what else can be done at this point. But whoever is out there supporting women's cricket, to just keep talking about it, and hopefully that someone will hear one day. Yeah.
I just want to Rachana put forth the name of Minnu Mani, and I want to talk about her because I don't think everybody who listens to our pod will be following her story. So in just 2 sentences, this is her story. She's the daughter of a daily wage laborer and used to travel 42 kilometers one way every day, changing 4 buses to train in Wayanad's KCA Stadium during the off season. And these are the kind of stories that I think will tell you that there is a huge interest, at least in our country, for the game. In terms of participation, they obviously do see some scope for it, some attachment of hope to it. But if you get shit commentary like this, or the lack of whatever following or coverage during an international game, then the chances of getting more eyeballs onto this product is remote. And obviously, we don't even care about the the host status of a World Cup and releasing fixtures in time. I don't see anybody according any importance. But as fans of the game, at least, I think we can try and make the right kind of noises.
I would kind of disagree with that assertion, PDP, because I think even for the men's selection, you can make a whole lot of noise on Twitter. There's nobody who's coming to explain to you why selection choices have been made in a certain way. I mean, Pakistan, a country which all of us, perhaps at least as far as their cricket is concerned, perhaps tend to sometimes make fun of as to, how they go about their decision making and captaincy changes and all of that. They had, selectors, the chief selector coming to press conferences and explaining, each of the selections. And I don't know how exactly those press conferences went off and, how much fun of the chief selector was made later. But you had someone, being answerable, accountable, etc. In India, it's not going to happen, in that way at all, because nobody cares about the fans' view. I mean, the game is being run because there's money to be made and distributed among those who want it, need it, crave for it. That's the end of that. Fans are just another stakeholder in the entire thing, a very minor one at that. The only thing we can do as fans is to attend as many games and talk about it as much as we can, and if something like the WPL comes along, make sure that we attend it in good numbers, etc. And perhaps that's going to lead to better commentary and rights being purchased by someone or the other who's in a better position to give some resources to it. But to expect that something on Twitter is going to be more than a little flutter in the ears of the powers that be is I mean, expecting is wanting the moon, I would say.
Yeah. This was a BCB. BCB was the home board, right? And I guess they are probably even behind the BCCI when it comes to prioritizing women's cricket. So, yeah, we have some way to go there.
I also had this question that I want to ask all of you guys. Do you honestly think that Harmanpreet Kaur is the best person to be leading this side tactically? I mean, she's an inspirational batter. No one is questioning her ability as a cricketer, but there have been on a number of occasions, and this was a game that India won easily, but on a number of occasions there have been calls that have been questioned by quite a few people. So I'd be interested to hear your views.
Honestly, I don't know who else can be the captain. I mean, who else? Probably Mandhana is the only other choice. But I don't really know if we have, a good enough captain waiting in the ranks, so to speak. The other thing is, I mean, I'm not favoring her over someone else, but I think a lot of the credit for the success of some of the other captains who have had the reins of their teams for a long time. You look at Australia, you look at England, you look at even New Zealand for that matter. It's on the backing of the backroom staff as well, which also has been stable, or at least the philosophy has been stable.
That's a good point.
In India, we haven't had that for I don't know how long, man. Like, which is why I was surprised that they finally managed to find a new coach. And I mean, I don't know how much experience Amol Mazumdar has had of coaching other women's teams, etc. I would have thought that Nushin was sort of a much better choice given her success in the, was it the under 19 or the under 23 World Cup recently?
Under 19, yes.
Under
Yeah.
19.
So
19.
so I don't know if you can really suddenly say that she's not a good captain, etc. Because I think a lot of the heavy lifting of captaincy across genders, formats, etc. is done by the backroom staff these days. And selection calls are good, solid, proper ones. I'm not sure if anyone, leave alone Harmanpreet, should be judged too harshly when it comes to how the captaincy has been going. And I also don't see too many other options. I think we have tried them and we haven't gone too far with them. So I think in some sense, at least, let's maintain the status quo and see how things go along.
Yeah, I agree with this, with your point on the backroom calls being much having a much greater weight than compared to the captain. It seems to be the case in women's cricket in India. And I'm just going back to the controversy back in was it 2019, 2020 when Mithali Raj was dropped. Yeah, Mithali Raj was dropped and she was captain at the time. Like she made a point that she has had very limited say in deciding the team's construct, etc. And it seems that and Harmanpreet Kaur has had a very good relationship with Richa, has been backing her throughout the year. I'm pretty sure she would have been surprised as well. It's quite absurd that she would have raised a hand and said no. I mean, or if she and let's say she has been supporting Richa this year, then clearly it's not her who has made that call.
Sure.
So yeah, and then when you look at Harmanpreet Kaur's track record as well, comparing it to the past few years when Mithali Raj was captain, she's actually done a very good job. And her own performance, like there's some leaders, some people who thrive, their own individual performance when they're in captaincy position, and some that don't. And we saw that, between Smriti Mandhana and Harmanpreet Kaur in the WPL. Harmanpreet Kaur was on fire, has been on fire as well as an individual performer. Smriti Mandhana did struggle as a captain, did struggle as an individual performer too. So I also, and then I also wonder who the other player, who could the other captains be? There is Deepthi potentially. There is Jemmy who could be an option as well, but still very early on for both of them. But I agree. The stability has been good. The team really look up to Harmanpreet Kaur, and I think we should. It's been just a year or two since she became captain across formats. So I would like to give her some time. Yeah.
And
If
I
only
wouldn't
she
give
had
anything to
stretched. If only she had stretched and made the crease, we
Yeah.
would have been talking about Harmanpreet in very, very different terms today. Sadly, that's how it goes in cricket.
Spirit of the game.
That makes for two Indian captains.
Well, Dhoni wasn't captain when he didn't stretch.
I
but
know,
yeah.
I know.
And I wouldn't give Smriti Mandhana the captaincy. She is the WPL captain for RCB.
Wow.
Samir Mohan.
but guys, what's it going to take to get a female coach for a female team? It doesn't seem like such a radical idea.
And someone who has an experience of the game for the women, I think is so crucial. I mean, for all that Amol Mazumdar has done, he's turned up.
I mean, I'm not
done only stints with Ranji teams.
I mean, I'm not throwing shade at Amol Mazumdar.
South Africa also. Last South Africa tour to India, he was their batting consultant. And how they turned, 3-0 they lost.
No, but I mean, I don't want it to seem like I'm throwing shade on Amol Mazumdar. He's a
but I am.
The game. No, I'm not.
But
I'm not.
I don't want to be an uncle about it.
No, I'm not. I'm an uncle about most other things, but I'm saying
an uncle and I know it.
No, but I'm talking about this on a conceptual level. I mean, it seems weird that you don't have a female coach for a female side.
I agree. Mithali Raj, just take the job. Come on.
Oh no, the team would not.
Too
much team politics. No, but
I was being sarcastic, guys. But yeah.
Yeah, but I think it's a fair point worth raising. But I've thought about this as well. By the way, India did go through many female coaches and since BCCI took over in 2006. There's Sudha Shah, Purnima Rao, all former cricketers. But I do think it's about finding someone with experience coaching women's team. I think that should be priority. And I was talking to someone, actually, she happened to be the former Netherlands captain. I was sitting next to her in a cricket match here. And we were talking about,
Did you split the bill with her?
Yeah. Sadly, it didn't go Dutch. I offered to pay. I'm joking. I got my own stuff. And talking about it is a different game biologically as well. So we were discussing when it comes to the Indian women's team, the women are generally leaner. You're looking at the team's been more focused on agility, etc., versus strength. And Jemmy has spoken about that as well. She comes to the 100 and then she sees, Catherine Brunt, deadlifting many kgs and coming into the gym early morning just to build their strength. And that's not been a thing for the Indian women's team as much. And I think that might be a consequence of
WPM.
WPM, but also like just having coaches that have
Exposure,
focused on the
yeah.
men's game, where there is more natural inbuilt strength, and so you focus more on agility. And this was just like one small difference that that got me thinking about this, that maybe I can't remember the England's coach who had put his name in the list, or anyone who had have experience working with strong women's teams would I would have given that person preference versus someone like Amol Mazumdar.
Just on that point, I think this was during COVID, and this was the height of something we all remember now, Twitter Spaces. There's one which I joined randomly, which had a friend of the pod, Ananya Upendran, on it, talking to a few people. And one of the questions I'd asked her was, how does a team prepare differently for, a women's cricket match compared to a men's one? And one of the things she mentioned was about wicket keeping and how it's so completely different in the women's game.
Interesting.
Where the keeper is expected to be standing up to the stumps for 95% of the time, and expected to take so many random takes. I mean, you could say that the speed is lower, but some of the best glove work that you could come across, just in terms of acrobatics, agility, and flashy stumpings, etc., is from women's cricket. And sadly, India haven't had such an amazing wicketkeeper, but Australia, Elisa Healy, and some of the English keeper, Amy
England,
Jones.
amazing.
And the one before that was Sarah. Who was
Taylor.
that?
Sarah Taylor.
Yeah, Sarah Taylor. So it's a very different game. The ball is obviously different, etc. There's a great Jared Kimber piece, which is about how you should follow women's cricket.
Swing and spin. Yeah.
So I mean, it's just five of us talking on a podcast, and how it makes complete sense. But as I said, it's going to be a flutter, perhaps not even that, in the years of the BCCI.
What
On
a
the
somber
subject,
note.
I know. Since we're talking about flutters, I think that's a good point to segue into Tamim Iqbal.
Speaking of BCB and women's involvement in cricket, great. Best of luck.
वाह, Bisi.
भाई ऐसा नहीं, तमीम से बात कर दो.
बहुत बढ़िया.
I have
Sheikh
nothing to
Hasina.
add to.
बोलिए लोग. हाँ, क्या
Deccan
हुआ?
Chargers.
Actually, someone should set up exactly what happened. So Tamim, if someone knows, I don't know. Yeah.
No, so apparently
Even Tamim doesn't know that.
No, even Tamim doesn't know. No, so apparently Tamim Iqbal said that. So all of this is hearsay, because no one is giving you the exact version of what happened.
That is important.
But enough about the delay in fixtures for the World Cup.
Fixtures for the World Cup. So
enough about West Indies 2007 and what happened to India at the hands of Tamim Iqbal.
Old wounds.
So Tamim Iqbal was apparently communicated to the board that he wasn't sure he was fit. But the only way he could know for sure is if he actually played, which the BCB chief objected to, saying that you cannot treat an ODI like a fitness test. At which
fair,
point,
I thought.
I
thought that's fair.
At which point, Tamim Iqbal goes to another hotel, calls a press conference, and gets tearful and thanks his uncle and thanks everyone who's helped him all through his career, and announces his retirement. A day later, the BCB president tries to get in touch with him, tries to get him to change his stance, is unsuccessful. Mashrafi Mortaza, who is by now a member of parliament, gets involved, gets the prime minister involved. There is a tripartite meeting, after which the general consensus is that Tamim will take some time off, get fit, and then come back, and he will not hastily call time on his international career.
So
He didn't
basically
want to
the
do a
plot
yo-yo
of-
test.
who
Basic-
accused him of using one-day cricket as a fitness test?
So the
Selector.
exactly the
Chairman of the
BCB,
selectors.
the chairman of the
Nazmul
selectors and the
Hasan.
Nazmul, no, he's the BCB
Papon.
president. Yeah, Papon
okay.
Bhai.
Papon,
Yeah.
right.
You
Oh,
can
it was the
use a
president.
test match as a fitness test, but not in one day. I mean, how can you
Because
do
it
that?
is called a test after all. Yeah.
Yeah.
Fair
So
enough. So
it follows.
the best closing comment on this is after all this happened, they asked Nazmul Hasan, how do you feel about, are you relieved that he's coming back? And his response, of course we are relieved. How can we play without our captain?
I think this entire thing is the plot of Ek Hasina Thi, Ek Divana Tha.
Wow.
But guys, I mean, Nazmul Hasan has got an amazing track record.
Yeah,
I mean, he's questioned
Yeah.
the commitment and fitness of all of his big players. You know,
Yeah, true.
whether it was
And they've
Shakib,
all gotten
Shakib.
big. must be
yeah,
said.
Under his ages, tutelage, all of that. So yeah.
sure.
True.
Bade bhai.
And in the meantime, Afghanistan have handed Bangladesh a very rare ODI series defeat at home,
At
which
home.
which many teams have failed to, right? England, Australia, India, New Zealand, everybody struggled. Pakistan, I think everyone has lost series in Bangladesh, right? So this
Yeah.
is pretty special.
Oh,
And
Nida
Afghanistan
has
might end up
happened in
doing
Sri
really
Lanka.
well.
Oh, okay. Yeah. Nida has happened in Sri Lanka. Sorry. Yeah.
Which Nidahas? Oh, the Dinesh Karthik.
The one Nida has. How many Nidas?
That's the only
Yeah,
one.
that was a multi-team tournament. In home
Right, right.
bilaterals, Bangladesh have been impregnable for a while. Their version of Paytm series.
Yeah.
By the way, we're getting a lot of many opportunities to plug Paytm. Huh? First, if you want to pay your barber, if you want to split your bill with a Dutch captain, with whom you're having Paytm karo. Yeah.
I know. But yeah, Tamim Iqbal.
By the way, Tamim Iqbal, I thought he's like 40 years or something. He's only 34 years old, by the way. So he was what, like 17 years old when he smashed Zahir Khan in that World Cup. So half as old as he is now. So yeah. There you
Yeah, but okay, sure. I mean,
When you put
Oh,
it
you're-
like that.
You're
I don't want to be an uncle
Bangladesh-
about it.
I don't want to be, I don't want to be uncle about it, but Tamim is actually an uncle who is taking his age.
I was an uncle in 2007, not
Hashtag Tamim se baat kar do.
Tamim se baat kar.
so moving on from Tamim to India.
Unlike the
versus-
Bangladesh team, moving on from Tamim.
we will move on to India versus the West Indies. Thoughts, guys?
Oh, wow.
Oh.
Rakeem Cornwall for the win.
Rakeem Cornwall for the win, indeed.
I know.
When does the series start?
Why does the series
May have
start?
already started.
Is it part of
May have already
the
started.
Super League?
Here it comes.
Aaj raat mein shuru.
So it starts off with the test matches, is it?
Yeah.
Okay.
Test
12
match is going to be Dominica. Just
12?
like,
Yeah.
Maggie, I think it must be called out that the two old men of Indian cricket, the two uncles of Indian cricket, Virat
Ravi
Kohli
Shastri and Sunil
Gavaskar.
Good.
Those two are the Adaljis or something. But Virat Kohli and Rahul Dravid put up a delightful picture on,
Yes.
I don't know, Instagram, Twitter, wherever, where they said that those two are the only two guys from that 2011 test at Dominica.
Hashtag
And it-
Nostalgia. Yeah.
And it brought back very sad memories of how we let that test win just go away.
Slip
And
away.
I hope it doesn't happen this time too. But yeah,
84 chasing 160 to win and needed another 80 runs in 15 overs or something.
and shut it down.
With Raina and Dhoni batting, if I remember right.
Yeah,
Or not even Dhoni. I think you had one more batsman. Lakshman and Raina were batting. Dhoni was still to come. And
Yeah.
India offered the draw.
Ben Stokes invented baseball as a response, as they say, to the mad scheduling for cricketers, and Dhoni gave up on Dominica in protest, I guess. So, I don't know. Such a sad test.
Yeah.
I think it's amazing that something like that is triggering a nostalgia post I mean, that's a tour that many of us want to forget. Some of us have happily already forgotten until we saw this picture of both these guys smiling and saying we're the only survivors from 2011.
Kohli made his debut in that series, if I remember right. His test debut. I don't think he played test before that.
Oh, okay.
Because in that tour, in fact, Abhinav Mukund also made his debut.
Abhinav Mukund.
Yeah.
And Raina also played, and Raina scored 50s in every test match in that series. But I think he had played already for India. I think Kohli made his debut. Yeah. And so,
Maybe
fond memories. And India did win the series. I mean, I have to say, they had already won the first test and took the series 1-0.
Awesome.
Nice.
So, thoughts, guys, on the series?
Hopefully, they won't draw the Dominica test. They'll actually win it.
No, I think it's going to take a humongous amount of patience for us following the Indian team going forward. If all of it has not already been used up, because I've been on this podcast for I don't know how many episodes now, and there's never an episode far away in which Nitin has not spoken of the transition, the specter of transition hanging above us, which has never happened, and it's now going to happen, perhaps not so much out of choice but out of compulsion. So yeah, I mean, it's going to be a team which is going to change. A loss against West Indies shouldn't really ring the alarm bells. A win shouldn't set our hopes too high. So yeah, I mean, just like wait and watch, and hopefully some of the new guys can make a name for themselves while all of us are.
Yeah. Rituraj and Yashasvi have started their own YouTube channel also. They're well
Seriously?
Yeah.
Oh my God.
Oh, really?
Coming to your life. Yeah.
What the hell? Why are we not talking about that?
Forget all that. I think the biggest.
So Ashwin is being replaced from YouTube also.
The transition is truly happening, and I think Gary Sobers had a real fanboy moment. He got to meet Ravichandran Ashwin finally with his wife. He's like, I saw pop dust on the field. Did you notice it?
I hit 6 sixes. You bowl six
different bat balls.
Yeah.
No, I think it's a great tour, guys. I really look forward to it. How do you prepare for an ODI World Cup? You play tests and T20s against a team that is not in the ODI World Cup. You can't. It's
make
perfect.
This stuff up. Yeah,
it's perfect. And then they play some T20s in Ireland as well. So,
but since the ODIs are back, we must ask that all-important question.
Super League.
I already asked.
Super League.
I already asked. Yeah.
He's gone to the extent of asking if test matches are part of Super League.
No, I was asking about the ODIs, to be clear. But yeah. But Super League has been called off, right? There is no more Super League.
Yeah, there's no more Super League.
They got bugged by your question, da. So many times you ask, they're like, okay, nahi karna humko. Every time you ask the same thing.
Yeah, so I'm absolutely not looking forward to this test series, just to be clear. I don't know how many tests they're playing. Hopefully it is 3 and not 2, but I'm guessing it's 2, probably.
2.
Nobody knows, so clearly
it's 2. It's 2.
Okay,
It's 2.
They'll decide on the go, da. So if it's 1-1, there will be a third test.
In 2011, they just call off the test match in the last hour. In 2023, we can call off the test match itself. After 2 tests.
They'll play 1 in the morning, 1 in the night. Different time zones.
It's 2 tests. 3 ODIs and 5 T20s.
Hey, this time they are going to that Florida or not?
Yeah, Fort Lauderdale.
Yeah.
So Max Anna is going to get some cricket action. Better than CCL finally.
I don't think he's going to go see it.
I think Detroit to Florida is pretty far away to go and watch India play West Indies.
Very tall order.
Anyway, anything else, guys?
Cool. I think that's a wrap. I think we've covered.
Hey, have we finalized the finalists for the qualifiers?
Finalists for the finals. Have we finalized the finalists for the qualifiers of the qualification? What is your question, Macha? I don't understand. Oh, for the World Cup.
Finally good for the World Cup.
Yeah. Sri Lanka and Netherlands are coming.
Netherlands.
The worst thing was that in those qualifiers, they can't they can't give out a trophy or something. So they're making the team
Namaste India. That's pretty cool.
before a random thing that says
No, no,
Namaste
they-
India 2023.
Sorry,
They
I
had
don't
a
know. Sorry.
they had a trophy also, but both teams, Sri Lanka and Netherlands, got to pose in front of a banner that had this Indian font and said Namaste India 2023, signaling that they're coming for the World Cup. Yeah.
If
Guess who did not
Mr.
pose in front of that? Shimran Hitmayer.
Oh, of course.
Yeah.
There was also this really statement that made me feel a little sad. I think from the Netherlands team, where they put out this message saying that they want to play, they want to have tours, and they want to have exposure. And I just felt really sad when I read it. I mean,
हाँ यार ये लोगन वैन बीक मांग रहा है.
yeah. No, but seriously, I mean, I just felt bad that here's a side that's done really well, and they played some great cricket during this tournament, and they're literally begging for tours and for more international cricket. I don't know how much of it they're going to get, but
They've
Next
met
World Cup. Yeah.
they've met Rachana. I think things are going to get better now.
I hope so. Yeah.
Only if she has
Former
paid half the
captain.
bill.
No, but it's a fair point, right? I mean, in Zimbabwe also, the scenes you saw when they won the games was
It is an
was
absolute tragedy
spectacular.
that Zimbabwe are not playing this World Cup. They played so well. I
They
mean,
played really well.
and it's been the story, the abiding memory of this qualification tournament has been the crowds in Zimbabwe, man. You don't have too many crowds in cricket that care about cricket. I mean, you have to put Asians to show any interest. Right? Of course,
Yeah.
outside of the Ashes and Asian teams, Zimbabwe seems to have the most plugged-in crowd. And I mean, that country is going through its own shit, right? People are there
Yeah,
in great
yeah.
spirits, cheering on. And they played really well. They don't deserve to
Yeah.
miss out on the World Cup because only 2 berths are there for the qualifiers. They played really well, right? And
Yeah.
I think there's also a very like small Zimbabwean boy who's actually a Sri Lanka cricket fan, and he comes to the Sri Lanka matches wearing a Sri Lanka jersey. So yeah, I mean, I think for all of us who are 90s kids, Zimbabwe is always going to be a special team.
Yeah.
And to see them do so well and then not get a chance in what they call is the World Cup with whatever 10 countries being
Yeah.
represented is just like a complete farce.
Also, on that note, Andy Flower returned to Zimbabwe to do commentary for this tournament.
Oh,
And
lovely.
he was apparently only going back for the second time after he left.
2003.
After
And-
leaving.
Yeah, and for the first time, in such high profile. So obviously he feels the country is now safe enough for him to go back to, which itself is a great step forward. And I was also reading something on the ICC site where he was saying he didn't have too much hope for Zimbabwe cricket in the last many years, but seeing what it is now, seeing how things are picking up now, he's quite positive about where they're going. So yeah, this World Cup is an aberration with this shitty 10-team format. The next ODI World Cup will have more teams. The next T20 World Cup is going to have a lot of teams. And hopefully that means these teams will get to play more, right?
Oh,
the hope.
that's confirmed on both counts, is it? ODI
Yeah.
and as well as T20. Oh, great.
Yeah.
That's great.
Do we know about the other important Indian team going to the Asian Games?
Shikhar Dhawan.
I think alternate captaincy. Shikhar Dhawan one match, Ravichandran
Hardik-
Ashwin another match.
Oh, sorry. Ravichandran. Oh, Ashwin is going to Asian Games. You.
Boss, first of all, nobody knows whether Asia Cup is happening. Pakistan has appointed high-profile committee to discuss.
No,
where it
that is for
going to
World Cup, not for Asia Cup. That is for World Cup.
No, but that is for World Cup. But it is to push
Huh.
back to say if you don't come to Pakistan for Asia
Correct.
Cup, we won't come to India for World Cup. So finally, the main team will only go for Asian Games.
I think they've signed off on the schedule for Asia Cup. No?
Yeah, but these signatures don't mean anything. They were lime juice ka ink, invisible ink.
I'm very happy that PCB is doing this. Go for it. All power to them. In any case, it's last minute schedule announcement. Go change it. Tell I don't agree. I wanted it 2 years in advance.
Yeah. Change.
Cool, man. We can wrap.
Cool.
Okay.
I hope my audios are better this time.
Are you
For
putting
editing.
like a closing bumper? Or you want one of us to do it? PDP.
Go for it.
Okay, cool. All right. This is which episode? Sorry.
79.
99.
79. Okay, just give me 5 seconds. Yeah, we spoke about the men's ashes, the women's ashes, about a retiring, unretiring Bangladeshi star, and about many things in between. And that is a wrap on episode 79 of Bits and Pieces. As always, find us wherever you listen to your podcast, and tell your friends also to listen to us and give us 5-star ratings. Thank you so much. See you again in a week's time with episode 80. Until then, bye-bye.
Bye.
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 Bye. All right.
Hey.
I thought. Okay, thank you guys. It must be really
Thank
late
you.
for those of you in India, which is only
Chops and me.
Chops doesn't sleep though, so it's fine. But yeah, PDP, sorry, macha.
I'm adjusting my sleeping
Sleep
schedule
cycle.
just like
for West Indies.
Ashwin
For
for
West Indies.
in your face, PGK.
The writing is on the Rakim Cornwall.
Oh, India has a wall. They also have a wall. Very
They have a Cornwall. Yeah, but their wall is bigger.
Sorry.
Okay.
Chalo. See you guys.
Thank you guys.
Night.
Bye.
Bye. Bye.
Bye.